Hello, the purpose of this instructional video is to support you in navigating the planning commentary. You can see here that I'm logged in to TaskStream and I'm accessing my EdTPA portfolio screen. Again, I will model this with the elementary math portfolio, but it mirrors all of the other handbooks. I'll scroll down to Task 1, Part E, Planning Commentary, and I will open up the form. There are two areas primarily that I want to highlight for you on this commentary, and the first one is Section 1, Central Focus. You are asked to describe the central focus and purpose for the content you will be teaching. Central focus is a way of saying what is the big idea or the key standard that you want your students to know and or be able to do. On Part B, the handbook prompts you to break down the central focus into the specific parts of your learning. Please note that for every handbook, these will vary. For the math one, it asks students to identify the conceptual understandings or the concepts that students would be learning. For example, in a geometry lesson, students may be learning about lines, line segments, and angles. These are examples of concepts. Procedural fluency addresses, as I like to say, the verbs, what students will do. Will they be measuring or estimating angles? Finally, articulate the math, reasoning, or problem-solving skills that the students will engage in as a part of this lesson. And again, please note that for your handbook, these will vary by your content. If you have questions about them, we encourage you to ask your cooperating teacher, your university supervisor, or a faculty member in your discipline. I will scroll down. In Section 2, you're answering questions about your students. What do you know about their prior learning in Section A? In Section B, you're asked to describe the personal, cultural, and community assets of your students. What are their culture? What is their everyday life like? An example of this is in a lesson on decimals. If the Olympics are going on or a sporting event like a track meet where time is measured in decimals, that could be a connection and an example of an everyday experience the students encounter that may support them in learning a new skill. I'll scroll down further to talk about academic language. You are asked to choose a language function that is essential during the lesson. The handbook gives you examples. However, if you choose to come up with a different one, that is okay. These are key verbs that the students will engage in. Then coming down to Part C, you're asked to identify any vocabulary terms that you will need to introduce to your students in order for them to be successful. Plus, at least one of the following: syntax or discourse. Syntax are a set of conventions that we use to organize information. Examples of these could be a graph, an equation, a sentence. Think about as your students complete their work, do they need to understand some form and conventions for how they will demonstrate their knowledge? Discourse is the language that people use when they talk about the discipline. So for example, in a reading lesson, I might teach my students the sentence frame, I read this, blank, they could fill in the blank, and I infer this. This gives students the language to communicate about an inference they might be making. Then you are asked to identify where in your lesson plan or materials you teach students the academic language and you encourage them to practice it. And this concludes our overview of the planning commentary.